What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We got a really exciting episode tonight. There's a lot of things that we got to talk about. There are quarterbacks that are going from throwing passes underneath center to holding that clipboard with that Gatorade in the other hand. Russell Wilson. Oh, the NFL is such a cutthroat league, man. I've never would have thought that a quarterback that has thrown 26 touchdowns to only 8 interceptions would ever lose his starting job. But there's some good reasons why Denver is deciding to take this approach with Russell Wilson. Tommy Devito, Sam Howell also got benched. We're going to get into those benchings in a little bit. Also got some best bets for you guys going into NFL Week 17. And I'm also going to be revealing my NFL MVP power rankings. And I got some thoughts about Damar Hamlin winning Comeback Player of the Year. The Chiefs' fall off is really disturbing. And why expanding the college football playoffs to 12 teams isn't going to go the way many fans think that it will. Before we begin, welcome to everybody that's tuned in live. Remember that every episode of the podcast that's available on YouTube is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, rate us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify and share the pod with your friends, family members, and acquaintances. So let's get into some football, man. There are quarterbacks this week that are going from throwing passes to holding the clipboard in that Gatorade cup on the sideline. We got to start off with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has been benched in favor of Jarrett Stidham. This has to be the most cutthroat benching that I've ever witnessed in all my years watching the NFL. I've never seen a quarterback throw 26 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions and lose his starting job where his team is still in position to make it into the playoffs. But this Russell Wilson saga with the Denver Broncos has got really messy. So apparently, a couple of weeks ago, after Denver played Kansas City, the Broncos organization came up to Russell Wilson and they was like, hey, bro, we need you to take a pay cut for us. So we need you to redo your contract. And Russell Wilson, I guess he was like, hell no, I ain't redoing nothing. Y'all figure it out. And apparently this caused some heated debates between the two parties. Of course, Russell Wilson, why the hell would he readjust his contract? He wasn't the one who offered him that deal. The Broncos were. So therefore, they got to pay for it. Yeah, if you're a Broncos fan, you're going to say Russell Wilson should want to take a pay cut and want to adjust his contract with how bad he's been not being able to live up to expectations. But at the same time, this is Denver's problem, not Russell Wilson. If you were Russell Wilson, would you be giving up free cash? Because I damn sure wouldn't. I don't care how bad I play. Go ahead and bench me. You still got to back up those Brinks trucks to my front door every single payday. So it doesn't matter to me. Bench me all you want to. So they're going to bench Russell Wilson for Jarrett Stidham the final 2 games of the season, despite the fact that they still have a chance of making it to the playoffs. But the reason for this is even more cutthroat. Yes, we know Russell Wilson hasn't played great, but he hasn't played bad enough to get benched. They want to put this fool on the sideline so they don't risk him getting injured. Because if he gets injured, then they got to pay this dude $35 million fully guaranteed next year if he was to suffer an injury. And the Denver Broncos, they plan on kicking Russell Wilson to the curb once the season is over. The question is, when are they going to release Russell Wilson? Are they going to do it before March 17th? Because if they do, then they are going to have to go ahead and take a major dead cap hit. His dead cap hit is around $85 million? But if they cut him post June 1st, then they're going to take a cap hit of $35.4 million for 2024. And then next year they take a dead cap hit of $49.6 million. Still major implications for getting rid of Russell Wilson. This has been a horrendous trade. When they traded for Russell Wilson back in 2022, Broncos Nation was thinking that they were finna ride on into the Super Bowl conversation, and it's been the polar opposite. And then you bring in Sean Payton. This dude was supposed to come in and fix Russell Wilson, and he's done a pretty good job of that. To the most part, Russell Wilson looks way better this season than what he looked last season. Like in 2022, I couldn't even call him Russell Wilson anymore. I just called him Russell. But this season, he's been serviceable. But the problem with Russell Wilson is just that he isn't a good fit for Sean Payton's offense. He's washed up. He's cooked. He's not what he used to be. And you look at the stats, and the stats show that Russell Wilson has been a pretty decent quarterback. But if you watch these games, Russell Wilson at times looks terrible. Against the New England Patriots, he was awful. And the Broncos run a red zone offense. Like their whole entire offense, no matter where they get the ball at, seems to have red zone play calling. Their 3 favorite plays are running the football up the gut, either throwing the jump ball to Cortland Sutton or Denzel Mims, or not Denzel Mims, but that other rookie that they got out of Oklahoma named Mims. And then, maybe doing a quarterback rollout, maybe a read option with Russell Wilson here or there. But this offense has no variety to it. It has no flavor. And there are people calling Sean Payton overrated when this dude has took one of the biggest laughingstocks in the NFL and made them a respectable team. Russell Wilson just isn't good enough for Sean Payton. And there are people saying that Sean Payton wanted Russell Wilson. Sean Payton didn't want no Russell Wilson. Sean Payton took this job because the owner of the Denver Broncos has so much damn money from owning Walmart that they said, fuck it. We need one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game to fix an all-time big mistake. This dude, Russell Wilson, was cooked last year, man. Did y'all forget how bad this team was? Because I didn't. I remember when they got blown out on Christmas by Baker Mayfield and the LA Rams. So you go from being an embarrassment to being a respectable team in one season under Sean Payton. It's just that Russell Wilson was never going to revert back to the level of play that we saw out of him in Seattle. That just was the truth of the situation, and Sean Payton knew this. And I also believe that Sean Payton took this job knowing that regardless of if Russell Wilson was going to be able to revert somewhat back to the Seattle level that he used to be at or not, he was still going to move on from Russell Wilson. Because here's the thing with Sean Payton, he didn't make this trade. He didn't want Russell Wilson. He inherited Russell Wilson because he's getting paid $20-something million to coach this damn team. This job was so undesirable that they pretty much had to beg Sean Payton to take it. That's why he's getting paid so much money. You think he would have had to get, kind of a little bit leveraged and kind of be a little bit incentivized to take the LA Chargers job if that was available last offseason? Hell no. He had to be incentivized to coach the Denver Broncos because nobody else wanted to coach Russell Wilson. Hell, Trevor Evero, when Nathaniel Hackett got fired last year, he was offered the interim coaching job and he didn't want it. Dan Quinn turned down the Broncos coaching job. Jim Harbaugh wouldn't even give these guys a listen. They were desperate, so they had to go out and get Sean Payton because this was the only way they could make this, a favorable solution to trying to fix Russell Wilson. It's just that Sean Payton just has had it up to here with Russell Wilson. If you go back and you watch that Detroit Lions game where the Lions beat the hell out of the Broncos, there was a play down the red zone when one of the Broncos offensive linemen got called for offsides, like Kadarius Toney did the week prior. Crazy, ironic, right? And then once Russell Wilson goes to the sideline, Sean Payton is giving it to this dude like, I'm not good at reading lips, but I do know that there was a lot of profanity coming out of Sean Payton's mouth when he was scolding Russell Wilson, and it didn't look pretty. And Russell Wilson, he didn't look too happy about it. It looked like he kind of got a little bit down and out on himself. And Russell Wilson is a really good person. And if we're looking at this from a human standpoint in a non-business situation, this is fucked up. Okay, this is fucked up. There's been a lot of crazy and things that have been a little bit non-morally correct that I've seen in the NFL, such as Pittsburgh forcing Troy Polamalu to retire. But this is really wrong. Okay, now I'm not knocking the business aspect of it. Don't come in the comment section trying to lecture me about the business side of football because trust me, I understand. I get it. But this dude, Russell Wilson, hasn't been bad enough to where his play warrants him getting benched for Jarrett Stidham. I would still take Russell Wilson over a handful of quarterbacks, although that handful is really small. But I'll take him over Taylor Heinicke and Desmond Ridder. I'll definitely take him over Kenny Pickett. Give me Russ any day of the week over Kenny Pickett. But Russell Wilson just wasn't going to cut it as Sean Payton's quarterback for the next couple of years. This offense is so limited because Sean Payton has had to build a scheme around a limited quarterback. Russell Wilson can't move how he used to move. He doesn't have a lot of arm strength like he used to possess anymore. He used to be Houdini. He's not Houdini anymore. He used to be able to wiggle himself out of sacks, find a way to turn nothing into something. He can't do that anymore, man. We were talking about how let Russ cook, but Russ has been cooked since he first got traded to Denver. And this has to be one of the most one-sided trades in NFL history. You look at Seattle, they flipped Russell Wilson and turned him into Devon Witherspoon and a lot of other promising young players. Meanwhile, Denver, you're seeing here in panic mode right now because you're about to take a huge dead cap hit to get rid of this dude. Like, it's crazy how Russell Wilson has 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the season, and he's going to be next week in their game against the Chargers, holding the damn clipboard with the Gatorade cup on the sideline. Hey, if they have Russell Wilson calling in the plays, you know how the backup quarterbacks be having on the orange or green vest and they be showing the hand signals for what the play call is? If they got Russell Wilson calling in the plays next week, I'ma lose it. I'ma lose it because it just doesn't get no disrespectful than that. Russell Wilson, when he gets cut, because it has been announced that the Broncos are going to part ways with him. They're just done with Russell Wilson at this point. They don't care about the implications. And if they're going to go that route, what's next for Russell Wilson? People talking about what's Russell Wilson's market going to be? You really think somebody's going to want Russell Wilson? Somebody may want to bring him in to be like a bridge stopgap quarterback and give him a cheap 1 year, $6-7 million deal, but that's about it. Who will want Russell Wilson? This dude is not what he used to be anymore. He's cooked. If I'm a team and I'm looking at my options at quarterback, Russell Wilson isn't even on my damn list. It's time for Russell Wilson to retire. All right? Become a family man. He just had another child a couple of weeks ago. Congratulations to him on that. You got a beautiful wife at home in Sierra. You got a beautiful family. Like, just hang up the cleats and give yourself the opportunity of being able to go out with your head somewhat held up high. Because nobody's going to remember at Russell Wilson's Hall of Fame induction about him getting benched by Denver a decade down the road. Because he shouldn't really be benched anyway. He's getting benched because of politics and financial reasons. There's no way that Russell Wilson's play, although it hasn't been great, warrants him having to hold a clipboard and a Gatorade cup on the sideline for the entirety of a game. And hell, like, if Russell Wilson was willing to take a veteran minimum, he would be a pretty good backup or, like I said earlier, a stopgap quarterback until you can find your successor of the future. Denver, though, they just had enough of it. Their owners got like billions and billions in the bank. They own Walmart, so they just got money to blow. So this ain't nothing to them. Them having to pay that $85 million and dead cap, that's like chunk change to them. Sean Payton, this was somebody who had Jameis Winston playing some damn good football, leading the NFL in touchdown to interception ratio, on top of the NFC South Division at 5-1 his final season in NOLA until he got injured by Devin White when they played the Bucs. Y'all seem to forget about that. Russell Wilson was made a serviceable quarterback by Sean Payton. We seem to forget just how bad Russ truly was in 2022 under Nathaniel Hackett. And Nathaniel Hackett couldn't hack the code with Russell Wilson, and neither could Sean Payton. The last 2 games of the season, you still have a shot at winning this division and making it to the playoffs, and you're going to say, you know what? We'd rather go with Jarrett Stidham. You see, I saw the writing on the wall once Sean Payton was chewing Russell Wilson out on the sideline. I saw what it was. Like I said, I can't read lips or nothing like that, but it was a lot of derogative language coming out of Sean Payton's mouth, and he was really irritated with Russell Wilson. He never wanted this dude. He inherited Russell Wilson, tried to make something out of nothing, which he did a pretty good job at doing, while he collects a big check. Now that the season's about to be over, you got a pretty high draft pick. You're going to be picking somewhere around 13 to 20. Maybe you'll be in position where you can maybe get a Bo Nix or Michael Penix, or maybe you can trade up and get somebody. But Russell Wilson, I believe his NFL career is done unless he's willing to be a backup. I don't see what team would want to sign Russell Wilson when Sean Payton was running a red zone offense with this dude. Like, their offense, they called plays like they were in the red zone. No matter where they were on any end of the field, they were starting their offensive drives at. So this is a really messy and a really ugly situation. Like, of course, Russell Wilson wasn't finna redo his contract. If you're a Broncos fan, would you redo your contract? I wouldn't. Shit, y'all the one who paid me. I ain't paid myself. So Russell Wilson, he's done in Denver. This has been a massive disaster. If you're the Seattle Seahawks and Pete Carroll and their general manager, like, you got to be laughing so hard at this. I mean, you just traded for this dude nearly 2 offseasons ago. This dude was supposed to bring you back to relevancy. And all he's done is make you an even more bigger embarrassment than what you've been in the past because of everything that you gave up to get this dude. Sean Payton, he's done with it. He's done with it. You can blame Sean Payton all you want to, but he can't be too much of the problem if he has Russell Wilson throwing 26 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions compared to what the hell this dude did last year. Now, this really hurt my heart. The New York Giants are benching Tommy Devito. Devito sanity is done, man. It's done against the Philadelphia Eagles. They took him out. They put Tyrod back in there, and I was really upset about it. Because at this point, what the hell are you playing for? You have no playoff chances. You're pretty much tanking for draft position at this point. Brian Daboll said they benched Tommy DeVito and ended DeVito's sanity because they needed a spark on offense. Bruh, Tommy DeVito wasn't the reason why your offense couldn't do anything against Philadelphia. Your offense just sucks. Your offensive line sucks. Your receivers suck. Like, they really signed Paris Campbell in free agency and thought that this dude was going to be a difference maker when he was coming off his best season in 4 to 5 years that he's been in the league? You might as well keep Tommy DeVito out there. The team likes him. The team rallies behind him. He was a good story. Why are you throwing Tyrod Taylor back in there? We know what this dude has. We still don't know what Tommy DeVito is. Why are these coaches benching young quarterbacks that have somewhat of a little bit of promise when their season is over? What are you playing for? Pride and respect? I mean, you lost all the pride and respect that you had when your season got ended weeks ago. So why the hell are you trying to win now the last 2 games of the season? Like, you might as well continue to throw Tommy DeVito back out there and allow him to figure it out. At one point, he had you on a 3-game winning streak. And you had a little bit of a reason, if you were a Giants fan, to tune into the Giants games because of Tommy DeVito. He was the only interesting storyline about the Giants. I didn't care about anybody else on this team. Like, when I started watching Giants games, it was 4 weeks ago because I wanted to see DeVito's sanity. Tommy DeVito, he had that 3-touchdown game against the Commanders. He had that game-winning drive that put the Giants in field goal range to beat the Packers on Monday Night Football. And then after that, he kind of came back down to earth, but he didn't play terribly enough where you have to bench him. He struggled against the Saints, but majority of solid to barely above average quarterbacks struggle against the Saints. They got a great defense. Of course he was going to struggle in that game. And against the Philadelphia Eagles, it was a complete mismatch. Like, Tyrod Taylor, yeah, he got you a couple of points, but this offense has looked way better under Tommy DeVito than what it's looked under any of these other quarterbacks. The dude was an undrafted rookie free agent. He's going to have some rookie growing pains. That's just what comes with having a young quarterback. Brian Daboll, what's the reason for making this decision to go back to Tyrod? What are you gaining out of this? Like, I want to see what Tommy DeVito has. Do you not want to see if Tommy DeVito could potentially be a serviceable quarterback if Daniel Jones fizzles out again next season? Like, what the hell are the New York Giants thinking when it just comes to their roster construction and their personnel moves? Their free agency signings that they made last offseason, most of them didn't work out. They traded for Darren Waller. He got injured. The only bright spot has been Jalen Hyatt. That's about it. Like, benching Tommy DeVito doesn't really give the offense a spark. All it does is give you a different quarterback back there, and a quarterback that wasn't even able to start over Tommy DeVito in the first place. You roll with Tommy DeVito over Tyrod for a reason. Like, what the hell is wrong with Brian Daboll? Is he losing it down there in New York? Like, do we need to go down there and have a little bit of an intermission with Brian Daboll? Do we need to have a therapy session with this dude? Because he looks like he's going through it. Honestly, like, what are we doing here? Why are we benching Tommy DeVito for Tyrod Taylor? We need to see what this young man has. DeVito's sanity can't end this soon, man. You got 2 more weeks left. You could have gave us 2 more weeks of DeVito's sanity, Brian Daboll, and you robbed us of that. You robbed us of the only reason to tune in the Giants games. I'm not watching a single Giants game for the rest of the year because there's no reason to watch this team now. You're boring as hell. You can't move the ball on offense. You can't run the ball with Saquon that effectively. I mean, why are we watching the Giants anymore? Even if you're a Giants fan, why are you watching? The season is over, man. You just ended DeVito's sanity when this dude has 8 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the year. Like, yeah, he had a couple of bad games, but he's an undrafted rookie free agent. Let him work out the growing pains. Let him work out the kinks. Shit, he's looked better than Daniel Jones this season. I didn't see Daniel Jones getting benched, did I? Did y'all one time this season see Daniel Jones get benched? Because I didn't. If there's anybody who should have gotten benched and should have gotten the plug pool, it should have been Daniel Jones. But you can't do that because you're paying him so much money, though. Tommy DeVito should still be the starting quarterback for the Giants. Let this man go out there and play. DeVito's sanity must live on. Well, I guess not anymore because we've been robbed of that for Brian Daboll. Curse Brian Daboll for this decision, man. Like, what the hell? And you want to know another decision that has me scratch my head going, what the hell is wrong? What the hell is wrong with Ron Rivera benching Sam Howell? Like, Sam Howell has been really bad the last month. From this past week to when they played against the New York Giants, this dude has thrown 2 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He has not looked good, but what's the point of benching him at this point? What the hell are you getting throwing Jacoby Brissett out there, man? We need to see what Sam Howell has. This is his first season as a full-time starter. Like, yeah, he's played bad, but when you're a young quarterback, you're going to have these growing pains, man. And based on how well Sam Howell has played for the majority of this year prior to the last month or so, he's looked like a pretty solid quarterback. So based on how he's played for the majority of this year, why would you just bench him for the last 2 games of the season? You're playing for nothing. What do you get benching Sam Howell starting Jacoby Brissett? What are you playing for? Pride and respect? I mean, Ron Rivera, you lost all the respect from the organization and the fan base like 2 months ago. Hell, you probably lost all the respect from the Commanders fan base before the season even started. Nobody believed in you. You hire Eric Bieniemy. He's been a disaster. The offensive line hasn't done Sam Howell no favors. Sam Howell was running for his life against the New York Jets last week. Yeah, it looked really ugly when he got benched. He had 2 interceptions. He was 6-22. Like, yeah, he kind of had to go on the bench and rethink some things, but it's no reason to not throw him back out there. What are you playing for now? You got nothing to play for. Ron Rivera, you're about to get fired. The least you can do is help out this organization and give them a couple of more games to figure out just what they have in Sam Howell. Like, do these head coaches have brains? Like, seriously, I'm not trying to be funny about this. I'm being dead serious. I really question if these head coaches have common sense. Like, I don't know why it's called common sense, but yet everybody acts like they don't have it. Common sense would tell you that your season's over, you're about to lose your job, you need to go out there and throw Sam Howell and see what he can do. He got 2 more games left. Like, 2 more bad games isn't going to change anything. It's not like all of a sudden Jacoby Brissett's going to come in and lit a spark under this organization. You're going to save your job and you're going to all of a sudden just magically get into the playoffs. The season's done. It's over. And if anything, you should want to have Sam Howell out there if he doesn't show any improvement playing trash, because that's going to increase your draft position. So potentially you can put yourself in a spot where you can get a Jaden Daniels or a Michael Penix or a Drake May, or maybe trade up and get Caleb Williams. There was incentive to keep Sam Howell out there and allow him to continue to struggle, because if he continues to struggle, it's still a win-win situation for you anyway. You can see if he can work it out and get over the growing pains, or he's going to be stinky enough to put you in a good spot to get a new quarterback. Like, what? Sam Howell has been pretty solid this year. And I'm a little bit biased about Sam Howell. Yes, I is, because he's been my starting quarterback on the majority of my fantasy teams this year, and he's produced at a pretty high level for me in fantasy football. And I know that fantasy football isn't real life football technically, but if you can be a serviceable fantasy football quarterback, then you can at least be a somewhat decent quarterback in real life. Hell, Jameis Winston, for all the interceptions he threw, at least he could come back and throw you a touchdown. Sam Howell in this case hasn't been that great, but it's not all his fault why the Commanders stink. Eric Bieniemy is a terrible play caller. Like, I knew what it was with Eric Bieniemy when I watched the Commanders get their ass beat on Thanksgiving, and they were in 4th and 1, 3rd and 1 situations several times in that game, and neither one of those times did they opt for the tush push. Everybody else in the NFL is doing the tush push. You're running Sam Howell with the Zion quarterback runs in the red zone, but 4th and 1, 3rd and inches comes along, and you just don't want to call the tush push. Like, Eric Bieniemy, I've seen some people say that he should get some head coaching interviews. Like, what the hell are you watching? Like, seriously, it's a dumpster fire down there in Washington. I don't know what city they play in, but it doesn't really matter because the circus is in town. It's been in town ever since they first hired Ron Rivera. After that first season when they had that crazy playoff run, when they had a losing record, won that weak division with Alex Smith, who damn near lost his leg, they've been irrelevant ever since. Like, the circus has been in town ever since Ron Rivera's second season with this organization. I'm just wondering, when are the Commanders branch finally going to say enough is enough and kick this dude to the curb and get this circus out of the city, man? Like, does this make any sense to y'all? Like, am I tripping? Y'all let me know down in the comment section down below if I'm not looking at this correctly. Jacoby Brissett is a veteran QB. He's been in this league for a couple of years now. This dude is a solid backup. Fringe starter if you need one. Why the hell is he out there for the final 2 games when we still need to see more out of Sam Howell? Sam Howell was top 5 in passing yards and touchdowns at one point. I know it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And Sam Howell, he's not even going to be able to cross the finish line because he's going to be on the sideline holding that clipboard with that damn Gatorade in one of his other hands. But I mean, you're playing for nothing. You're playing for pride and respect, and you don't have any of your Ron Rivera at this point. Hell, I don't even know what the point is of even trying to throw Jacoby Brissett out there and trying to win games, bruh. Like, just let Sam Howell go out there, continue to throw picks, and continue to allow you to lose so you can do this organization a favor before you get fired and before you get that pink slip on your day off, and give Washington at least the blessing of having the opportunity to draft the franchise quarterback. That's the least you can do if you're Ron Rivera. You don't let this franchise down for so many years. The least you can do is that. At least give them a high draft pick to land their next successor at the QB position, since you couldn't do it yourself. Like, this is embarrassing, bro. Like, I don't get why Tommy DeVito's benched and why Sam Howell are benched when 2 of these teams aren't playing for anything. Like, these are some really head-scratching moves that make absolutely 0 sense to me, man. I'll be glad when Ron Rivera's out of town in Washington. Really don't get this decision. You can say he's played so bad that you have to bench him, but why? He's still a young quarterback, and you're only playing for draft positioning at this point. When you win, it's still a loss, because all a win does is make you lower on the draft rankings, give you lower positioning in the draft. Like, wow, I can't believe the benchings that are taking place right now with teams that are competing for absolutely nothing. Nothing at all, man. Now, before we move on, if you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Remember that every episode of the podcast that's uploaded on the channel is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying the show. Give us a 5-star review, all that good stuff. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to my guy, Poppy Guapo TV. Shout out to Dubs. All right, now the next thing we got to talk about is we got to talk about these Kansas City Chiefs, man. Yeah, like, I forgot to talk about them the other night, but I had a lot of things to say about their current situation right now because it's looking really ugly. So, Christmas Day, right? I didn't wake up to catch the start of the Chiefs-Raiders game because I thought there was no reason to turn that game on. I thought that Kansas City was going to annihilate the Raiders like they did the first time they played, but I wake up around 2:30 p.m. Eastern time and I look at my phone and the Raiders are up on Kansas City. And I'm like, hold up. What the hell is going on here? I turn the game on and all of a sudden the Raiders get a pick six by Jack Jones. Right after the previous possession, Isaiah Pacheco was at quarterback trying to do a read option exchange with Patrick Mahomes at running back. He fumbles or muffs or messes up the handoff. Then one of the big boys for the Raiders scoops it up and takes it for a touchdown. And all of a sudden, the Raiders score 2 touchdowns in like 8 seconds. And the game is completely in the Raiders' favor at that point because they were able to beat Kansas City without completing a single pass after the first quarter. I don't know what's more disturbing. The fact that Kansas City lost to the Raiders or the fact that they lost to the Raiders without them completing a single completion after the first quarter. And it's crazy how people say how Mahomes is such this great quarterback and he makes the players around him better and how he's going to be able to figure it out. How is he going to be able to figure this shit out? This is terrible. Their offensive line is awful. Joe Tooney is cooked. Their offensive tackles are cooked. Jawan Taylor was one of the worst free agency signings of last offseason, and he was a massive overpay. You can't block nobody. The receivers can't get open. Travis Kelce is cooked. Maybe Taylor Swift has cursed this team because ever since Taylor Swift started dating Travis Kelce and she started popping up to the games, this has not been the same Chiefs team that I've been accustomed to seeing over the last couple of years. And this certainly isn't the team that people were calling the next dynasty after they won the Super Bowl last year. Like, you remember how people were trying to say the Chiefs were going to be the next great dynasty? Were they going to be better than the Patriots dynasty with Brady and Belichick? It's crazy how things change in only the span of a couple of months, isn't it? Like, this is really disturbing right now. The fall off of Kansas City has to be studied. You got Patrick Mahomes throwing temper tantrums on the sideline against the Buffalo Bills. Talking about some, man, that was a terrible call. I ain't never seen a call like that. Offsides. Like, I'm glad Josh Allen gave him that look. Like, Josh Allen, when Patrick Mahomes came up and told him that, like, he just gave him that look, like, and gave him that pat on the shoulder, like, I feel you, bro. I feel you. Like, bro, crying on the sidelines and stuff like that. Like, what the hell is going on with Kansas City, bro? Like, this team has fallen off completely. Like, they're going to be one and done in the playoffs easily. Like, who in the AFC right now can you realistically say the Chiefs have a great chance at beating if they match up against them in the postseason? Probably the Broncos. That's about it. Maybe Pittsburgh. But Kansas City's offense is so out of sorts that it's going to be hard for them to make it any further than the wild card round. You see, this is what I've been trying to say for the longest, but a lot of people never listen when it comes to comparing Patrick Mahomes to the rest of the other quarterbacks in the league. The gap in talent between Mahomes and the rest of the other top QBs in the game, such as Lamar, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow, is not as wide as what people make it out to be. You see, people make it seem like Patrick Mahomes is fucking Superman and he can carry any team, and as long as you got Mahomes, you got a chance. No, you don't. As long as you have Patrick Mahomes and some solid receivers and a solid offensive line around him, then you have a chance. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play this game, but he can't overcompensate for everything. He can't overcompensate for wide receivers who have no situational awareness. Like, they gave this dude, J.R. Smith, that wide receiver. You know what I call Kadarius Toney? I call this dude J.R. Toney because that's what he is. He's the NFL's equivalent to J.R. Smith. This dude is always doing some goofy stuff, like rather if it's him lining up off sides, having passes go through his hands for an interception, and the dude is talented. I see why they continue to give this dude opportunities. He's too talented to not have him on the field. But it's just, when is he going to be able to put it all together? Travis Kelce is done. Like, he was already mulling over retirement a couple of months ago. I feel he's going to retire after this season. And yeah, he's on pace to get 1,000 yards, but this is nowhere close to the superstar level tight end that we've seen the last 6-7 years in KC with Mahomes. Like, Kansas City, going into this season, you thought that this year was going to look like what last year people thought it was going to be. When they traded Tyreek Hill, people thought this offense would be as bad as what it is right now. But this season, it's like the roles are reversed. You can't get any big plays downfield. Mahomes isn't playing his best ball. This is probably the worst football that Mahomes has played in his whole entire NFL career. Imagine me telling you that Russell Wilson has a better touchdown-interception ratio than Mahomes. Now, we know who we're taking. Russ or Patrick. We're definitely taking Patrick unless you're drunk. But Mahomes, he's tried to do a little bit too much this year. Sometimes his emotions have gotten the best of him. He hasn't really been the same cool, calm, and collected Mahomes that we've seen in the past. And it's understandable. He's not used to losing. Like, this dude has been a winner ever since he first entered the league. Like, his first season, being the full-time starter, they went to the AFC Championship. They lost to freaking Brady. Like, I can understand the frustrations, but Andy Reid, you got to change some things, man. I think they might just need to go 1970, 1980, go old school. Get underneath center, get a fullback in there, and just run the rock with Isaiah Pacheco. And then they try to get way too cute, way too fancy. What the hell is Isaiah Pacheco doing lining up as your wildcat quarterback or lining up at QB and you're trying to run a read option? And with Mahomes, of all people, being on the recipient of the handoff, like, what the hell does Patrick Mahomes know about getting the handoff at running back? Of course that play was going to be a recipe for disaster. Bro, you lost to the Raiders. You lost to Aiden O'Connell. They didn't even have to throw a pass against you after the first quarter, man. Like, the fall from grace from Kansas City has just come so fast that, I'm going to be honest, I never thought that Kansas City was going to be one of those franchises that every single year they were going to make it to the playoffs. I never did. But I never expected them to just fall off this fast. And for all the people that still think that the Chiefs are going to be able to pull something out of their ass, I'll ask you this. For a quarterback to go deep in the playoffs, what do you need? You need a talented roster and good coaching. You got the coaching down pat, but you don't have the talent. You see, Lamar Jackson has been heavily scrutinized in the past for not being able to get it done in the playoffs, despite the fact that he's never had a team as good as what Mahomes and Burrow have had the past couple of years. Now Lamar has a team, and everybody's putting all the pressure on him to win the Super Bowl, but now Mahomes all of a sudden, oh, well, the Chiefs just ain't a great team, but they can still find a way. No, you can't find a way. One player doesn't dictate the outcome of a game. You need 11 other good players on your roster. And the Chiefs don't have that on offense. They don't have a go-to wide receiver. They don't have anybody who can create consistent separation. Their best wideout is Rashee Rice, and he's good, but, you know, he's still not on the level of being the guy who you can always trust in crucial situations on third downs, and he can be your security blanket. Year 2 is probably going to be the year that Rashee Rice emerges and he breaks out. I mean, Sky Moore, he's injured. He wasn't even good. You traded for Mecole Hardman a couple of weeks ago. What the hell happened to him? Like, the only thing keeping Kansas City alive is this defense. Like, Mahomes has had some really disastrous performances. But this whole sentiment that it's Mahomes, you can never count out Mahomes, like, I never buy that whole argument. I'll never buy an argument that you can never count out Huey McCollum because it's Huey McCollum. I remember Brady's final playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys. I had a friend of mine that betted me $150 that Brady and the Bucs were going to upset Dallas. And I said, fam, are you okay? Why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you giving me free money? You trying to give me a late Christmas present? He was like, no, bro, like, you tripping, sleeping on Tom Brady. You should never count out Brady. And here's the thing with these narratives when it comes to these great players. Like, people make it seem like great players never have losing seasons. That's why I was trying to tell one of my homies in the offseason, like, bro, the Ravens have a lot of talent this year. So does Joe Burrow when he was healthy. Like, the gap between Mahomes and the rest of the other great quarterbacks in the NFL is not as wide as what people make it out to be. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow, when it comes to talent level, they're not too far off in comparison to Mahomes. And in my opinion, if Lamar wins the Super Bowl, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. No quarterback has the speed, agility, and skill set that Lamar possesses. When Lamar Jackson is on, he's damn near unstoppable. Like, Patrick Mahomes, for him to be able to take Kansas City on the Cinderella playoff run, they're just all of a sudden going to need Kadarius Toney to blossom into what the Giants hoped he would have been when they drafted him a couple of years ago out of Florida. They're going to need Travis Kelce to bounce back to that all-pro form that we've seen out of him the last couple of years. They're going to need a lot of things to change, and it's going to have to happen fast. You see, Lamar Jackson has a talented team. There are other teams in the AFC, like the Dolphins, that have talented rosters. Same thing with the Buffalo Bills. Kansas City isn't going to be able to get carried to the Super Bowl by Mahomes this season with how tough the AFC is. There's just way too much firepower for these boys to be able to match up with. It's a struggle for Kansas City to even get the 21 points, man. Like, who would have thought that Kansas City, out of all offenses, it would be a knife fight for them trying to find 3 touchdowns? They couldn't even get 3 touchdowns against the Las Vegas Raiders, man. Like, this defense is looking all world, and their defense has improved ever since their interim head coach took it over. Got to give him a lot of credit for that, but this is the Kansas City Chiefs, bruh. This is Patrick Mahomes. If you can't score 20 on the Las Vegas Raiders and you're Mahomes, what the hell makes you think you're going to be able to do that against the Buffalo Bills or the Baltimore Ravens? Like, this is going to be the first time in Mahomes' career ever that he's going to go into the postseason having to go on the road to play a playoff game potentially, if they even make it out of the wild card round. Like, when you used to go on the road and play Kansas City, it was impossible to get a win. Like, going to Arrowhead was like an automatic L. But now you go to Arrowhead and you got a great chance. Like, I get how great Patrick Mahomes is. I understand you, bro, but we got to stop guzzling Mahomes so much, bro. Like, people ride Patrick Mahomes' dick so much, and it makes no sense, bro. You got to have a good team to be able to be a Super Bowl caliber contender. Having a quarterback makes things easier for you, but even Patrick Mahomes needs a couple of great pieces around him to be successful. That's why I keep saying how dumb this whole Brock Purdy narrative is, that he's the weak link of the 49ers. Like, every great quarterback in the league plays with talent around them. No quarterback wins Super Bowls having a shit team around them with bad receivers, bad offensive line, playing bad coaching. The better the quarterback, the more limitations he can overcome and make up for with his skills. But you still need to have a championship roster around him. And the Chiefs don't have that offensively. They don't have a championship caliber offensive line. They don't have championship caliber wide receivers. And Travis Kelce isn't even good enough where teams even have to game plan to double team him like that anymore. The Chiefs fall off is really disturbing. And I truthfully believe they're going to be a one-and-done team in the playoffs. They may make it out of wild card weekend, but they're not going to go anywhere past the divisional round. They make it to the AFC Championship, you'll have to pinch me and ask me if I'm dreaming, because with this offense, the only way they're going to find a way to make it into the playoffs is if maybe they can give Antonio Brown a call, and maybe he can help them out a little bit. And I don't even know if Antonio Brown would be enough. You know, like, he's out there, like, they need a lot of help. You know, they need to go out and call back Tyreek. Maybe if the Miami Dolphins lose in the playoffs, maybe Tyreek could maybe work some magic or something, try to figure out if he could find a way to help Kansas City out on their playoff game. But they need to call some old friends. They need to get an offensive line. They need 2 tackles. They need a new guard. Like, they may need some new plays. Like, every Tuesday, they got something where they put new plays in the playbook. Well, apparently these new plays that these players be cooking up on Tuesdays, they ain't working anymore, bro, because they need to change a lot of things up. I think Kansas City just needs to get back to the basics. I formation, 1970s, 1980s, old school football, smash mouth. We're going to run it down your throat, and we're only going to throw the ball when need be. They don't need to be airing it out with Mahomes anymore, because these receivers are going to let them down every time outside of Rashid Rice. I want to give you guys my best bets of week 17 of the NFL season, man. I got some really good ones. Now, before I start, I want to tell you guys that, you know, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. So if you end up, using these bets, putting money down, I only want the credit. I don't want the blame. So don't hit me up in my DMs saying, oh, JT, he loves me, blah, 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 blah. Don't gamble with money that you don't have. Now, we got Lions, Cowboys. I like the Lions +6 in this game. Dallas, they're one of the best teams in the NFL when they're playing at home. But the Detroit Lions, they're one of the best teams in the NFL when it comes to being able to get wins on the road. And on the road, the Detroit Lions are 6-2 against the spread. The Dallas Cowboys' best wins at home came against Philadelphia, Seattle, and the Rams. The Lions, up to this point, are the best home opponent that they faced up to this point of the season. Detroit, they got a fantastic offense. They got multiple wide receivers or multiple players on their offense that have more than 4 or 5 touchdowns. They got a two-headed monster at the running back position at David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. The Dallas Cowboys run defense is not that great. And they kind of got out-physicaled and outmatched up front against the Dolphins last week. And the Dolphins, on their offensive line, they aren't even fully healthy. So imagine what damage the Detroit Lions offensive line can do against this Dallas Cowboys front. The Lions are not one of those teams that you're going to be able to push around in the trenches. Michael Parsons is a very good player, but I wonder how he's going to do against one of the NFL's best offensive lines. There's only like 3 or 4 teams this season that you can truly say have received elite offensive line play, and the Lions are one of them. The Lions' ability to generate points on offense gives me a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to cover that +6. No matter if they lose or win, this is going to be a tight game because Dallas defensively is massively overrated. This defense is inflated. Yeah, they are really good at forcing turnovers and takeaways at times, and they got a lot of big names on paper, but they're depleted at linebacker, and their cornerbacks at times can give up a lot of big plays with double moves, and they can kind of be a little bit undisciplined. Detroit, they're one of those teams that they may not be a team that you look at in the postseason as somebody who could go all the way, but they definitely are just as talented as the Dallas Cowboys are. This game isn't going to be a blowout. I like the Lions to cover that +6. The Baltimore Ravens are back at home after crushing the 49ers on Christmas Day. The Dolphins, they got their biggest win of the season when they took down the Cowboys, but I think the Ravens are going to cover that -3.5, and they're going to lay it down on the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins offense never shows up against great teams. Even last week, like, all of their points were all field goals pretty much. And if your offense is struggling to score in the red zone, how are you going to be able to have success against a team like Baltimore? And Baltimore's defense has way more talent than what the Dallas Cowboys have. The Dallas Cowboys are depleted at linebacker. You know what the strength of the Ravens defense is? Their front seven. They got multiple guys on the defensive line that are starters and multiple guys on the bench who they can rotate in and out, who not only are effective against the run, but also effective against the pass. And a large reason why I'm super confident in the Ravens being able to cover this 3.5 and why this is my lock of the week. Do you know who Mike McDaniel worked under? Kyle Shanahan. And a lot of the things that Kyle Shanahan does offensively, surprise, surprise, his protege, Mike McDaniels, does as well. And their offenses are a little bit different in certain aspects, but they still have the same goal. Now, Miami is more pass heavy than what the 49ers are, but in the passing game, they don't really have a lot of big, deep passing plays downfield when they're just throwing the ball 40, 50 yards consistently. Like, a lot of the damage that Miami does is in the short, intermediate areas of the field. They want to get the ball out of Tua's hands fast, and they want Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Devon Achane, whoever is the recipient of Tua's passes, to make things happen after the catch. And you see, that works until you're going up against a team like Baltimore that is really good when it comes to tackling, and they don't really give up a lot of big plays after the catch neither. Prime example, last week when they beat the 49ers, there was a play when Deebo Samuel got like a swing pass and he got stood up by Marlon Humphrey. Like, Marlon Humphrey met that boy at the hole. That boy said, hum! It was a collision when that thing took place. So the Ravens are not one of those teams that they're just going to be giving up a lot of big plays with Tyreek Hill doing all those spin moves and making guys miss. The Ravens are one of the best tackling teams in the NFL, and they play disciplined football. And the Dolphins, with the injuries that they have on the offensive line, is definitely going to be a major disadvantage for them in this game. And the Ravens, most of the times when they play at home, they are extremely dominant. All right, the Rams gave them a pretty close game, but Miami, their offensive line isn't anywhere as good as what the Rams is. And Tua hasn't really played all that great against great teams. The Ravens have been here before. You beat the Cowboys, but I'm not going to say I'm going to discredit you for beating Dallas, but at the same time, let's not act like it's the Cowboys. Like, it's the Cowboys, bro. We know what they're notoriously known for doing. All right, but I'll give you credit for that win. But all of the other times you're going up against great teams like Kansas City, the Buffalo Bills, and Philadelphia, your offense has struggled. Your defense can keep you in this game. But Baltimore overall, just defensively, I think they're a big mismatch for the Dolphins offense. Mike McDaniel, he learned from Kyle Shanahan. He comes from that coaching tree. And Mike McDonald, he had all the answers for Kyle Shanahan last week, and I think the same is going to be said for Mike McDaniels and his offense when he goes up against this defense. It's just so many great players on that defensive line. It's going to be hard for the Dolphins to score a lot of points offensively when they weren't really doing a great job at scoring last week. Like, they had hella field goals against the Cowboys. They left a lot of points off the board. Saints, Bucks, this is another lock that I have. I'm like 110 out of 110% confident that the Buccaneers are going to win this game. The last time they played the Saints, they destroyed them. It was 26-9. New Orleans has only beaten one team all season long that has a record above 500. I believe that's the Indianapolis Colts. The Buccaneers, they're on like a 3-4 game win streak right now. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Saints, like, they've lost 4 out of their last 6 games, and their 2 wins have come against crappy teams, the Carolina Panthers and Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants. Baker Mayfield is in that kitchen, and he's baking it up right now. The Buccaneers have been the most surprising team in the NFL this year. Todd Bowles is the best coach in this division, and that's the reason why they're about to win it for the second consecutive time with the win in this game. Derek Carr, he's a check down machine, doesn't take a lot of shots downfield unless he has a wide receiver just butt ass open. Like, the New Orleans Saints, their offensive line isn't good, and Tampa Bay defensively, when you look at how they've played this season, outside of that Texans performance, this defense has been pretty solid. And it's already a dogfight for New Orleans to get the 20 points in the majority of games that they play. So it's probably going to be a dogfight for them to maybe even get the 17. Tampa Bay's offense, it's not efficient as what you think. Okay, they can't run the football that effectively, but you do got Rashad White, who has a similar style of play to Alvin Kamara. You got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin on the outside. There's times when this offense struggles on third downs and they can't get anything going offensively. But in the fourth quarter, Baker Mayfield finds a way to get a little bit of a spark and to get this offense going when the game is on the line. The Buccaneers aren't one of those teams that I believe they're going to go far in the playoffs. But as far as how they match up against average or mid teams, they fare pretty good, and against New Orleans, they just have the coaching advantage. They got the quarterback advantage. They got the talent advantage in this game. I trust the Buccaneers to win this game by more than 3 points. I wouldn't be surprised if it's another blowout. Like, look how the Saints played against the Rams. They didn't wake up until the game was already out of reach. So with the lackluster offense that the Rams have, the Buccaneers playing their best football around the time of the season where it's the most important to play your best, I got to go with Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, man. Lock of the week. Lock that in. And lastly, Rams, Giants. The Rams, they should cover that 4.5 spread. The New York Giants, their defense, with Wink Martindale calling the plays, that it could be interesting, the chess match between him and Sean McVay. Offensively, they're starting Tyrod Taylor, man. Like, let's be serious. Tommy DeVito has given the Giants the best quarterback play that they've gotten out of that position all year long, and they benched him. Tyrod Taylor, the most he can get you is 12 points. 12 points isn't going to be enough to beat the Rams or even stay close with the Rams. And you damn near got blown out by Philadelphia, but Philadelphia kept giving you reasons to stay in that game. The Rams are a better coach team than Philly right now. They're playing their best football. The New York Giants at this point, they're playing for pride and respect if they haven't lost it already from their fan base for this season. The Rams, I expect this game to be not a blowout, but this should be one of those games where the Rams win by at least 10 or more points. I'm really confident about the Rams covering against the New York Giants. So these are my NFL Week 17 best bets. If you guys parlay these or do one of these games single, I only want the credit. I don't want the blame. So if it works out for you, send me a screenshot in the DMs. If it doesn't, then, I'll do better next week for you if you continue to trust me. But I'm pretty confident with these. Like I'm like at 62% on the season against the spread. And I also put all these together in my own little parlays too, so it's not like I'm not finna be betting and having my money on the line with these two. That's why I be so amped up when I come on here to talk about these games, because betting on these games kind of makes me a lot more locked in when I watch them. So these are my best bets of Week 17. Comment yours down in the comment section down below. We're not done yet, people. We got a lot more things to talk about tonight. I got to get another sip of water, because, man, I'm losing my voice damn near, man. Shout out to everybody in the chat. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of great content coming next year in 2024, man. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the other YouTube channels. We're about to get those rolling. JT Sports NFL, JT Sports College Football. You can find those on the About page of the channel. And most importantly, if you just got in here and you didn't catch the early part of the live stream, every live stream, after it ends a couple of hours later, it's available in audio format on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. And if you haven't already, give us a 5-star review. Great way to support the channel. And it's like your late Christmas gift from you to me. I would greatly appreciate if you go ahead and give the podcast a 5-star review. Helps us out a lot. Damar Hamlin, when he damn near died on the field and he got brought back to life, it was a huge accomplishment. It was amazing, and it was incredible to see this dude even be able to suit up and play football again. But I'm really concerned with him being the favorite to win Comeback Player of the Year. He's been the favorite even dating back to before the season started. And listen, I don't have anything against Damar Hamlin. The dude dying and being brought back to life is a huge accomplishment. It definitely should be honored and cherished, and he deserves a lot of credit for being able to come back from that and still being able to play football. But he shouldn't win Comeback Player of the Year this year. All right? You see, at the end of the day, you still have to go out there and you got to play at a high level. And Damar Hamlin, this dude hasn't even played in the majority of the Bills' games this year, and he's a backup. And there's been some games this season when he's been inactive. He hasn't even suited up at all. Like, you got to give another award to Damar Hamlin. You can't give Comeback Player of the Year to Damar Hamlin when he hasn't really had great on-the-field play. You see, people make it seem like this award has to be given to him just because of what he went through. Like, this dude has already received enough recognition from that. He's in Disney commercials, like, he's doing photo shoots. This dude is damn near a celebrity, bro. He's one of the most popular players in the NFL. So I don't really think that him winning Comeback Player of the Year is really a necessity. He doesn't need to win this award. Like, Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco deserve to win Comeback Player of the Year. Like, I get it that they didn't almost lose their life on the football field. I understand that. But my whole argument is that you can't just give this dude the award because of what he went through when he's already had tons of other accolades and accomplishments that he's racked up. You can't make the Comeback Player of the Year award a participation trophy, because that's what giving it to Damar Hamlin would be. The fact that he isn't a starter and he isn't really having a big impact on his team should disqualify him from even being a candidate for this award. It would be a crime if Joe Flacco gets the Browns to the playoffs, or Baker Mayfield and Bucks win this division and neither one of those players win Comeback Player of the Year over Damar Hamlin. Like, that would really upset me. Baker Mayfield, this dude was on several NFL teams, man. Before the season started, Colin Cowherd said this dude needed to retire, bruh. Who the fuck would have thought that the Buccaneers, led by Baker Mayfield and Todd Bowles, would be winning the NFC South for a second straight year in a row? Joe Flacco, man. This fool was on the couch a month ago, and he has saved the Browns season at 70 years old. These are incredible stories, bruh. And yet the NFL is just going to give it to Damar Hamlin because of what happened to him a year ago. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the severity of the situation. I don't want any of you woke people coming at me sideways in the comment section. But I do understand that most of you guys can comprehend where I'm coming from with this. Like, the story was incredible. All right? Nobody's denying that. But my whole argument with this is that Baker Mayfield and Joe Flacco, they have incredible stories too. And of course, they're not as dire as what Damar Hamlin's was, but you gotta have to play on the field. When Alex Smith won Comeback Player of the Year, when he damn near lost his leg and almost lost his life with it too, that was well deserved because he led the Washington football team at the time to not only the division title, but to the playoffs. If you're going to win Comeback Player of the Year, not only do you got to have a good redemption story, Damar Hamlin has that, but you got to have to play on the field. And I know there's not really a criteria for Comeback Player of the Year, but just giving it to Damar Hamlin would kind of be like, I don't want to call it woke, but it just would be more as publicity, in my opinion. Honestly, because Damar Hamlin, why does he need to win Comeback Player of the Year? We know what happened to him on the field. He gets so much attention and, congratulations from being able to overcome that situation and play football. He doesn't need any more. Why does he need Comeback Player of the Year? This dude is on magazines. He's on photo shoots with Disney. He's on commercials. Like, he's one of the most popular players in the league because of the situation. Like, he doesn't need anything else, bruh. He doesn't need Comeback Player of the Year. Why does he need this award? He doesn't. It should be given to either Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson, or Matthew Stafford, anybody that has had productive play on the field. And please don't make it seem like I'm trying to be, a opinionist about this. I'm trying to be a counterist or anything like that. I'm not. I'm just being honest about the situation. Damar Hamlin doesn't deserve to win Comeback Player of the Year. Like, I'm going to say it one more time. The fact that he damn near died on the football field and got brought back to life is an incredible story. He's back playing football again. That's incredible. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic or sadistic when I say any of these things. Like, I mean this with all of my heart. Like, genuinely. But at the same time, like, you have to have a certain level of on-the-field play for this. Just because he almost had this happen where he lost his life and he was able to suit up and play a couple of downs doesn't mean that he automatically should win this award, bruh. Like, and you can make it sound like I'm being effed up about the situation, but I just feel like I'm being honest about this. And it would be a really big slap in the face to the work that Baker Mayfield and Joe Flacco put into this season to get the Comeback Player of the Year award given to a guy because of his situation when, yes, his situation was messed up, but the play has to reflect it also. And if they do that, I would lose a considerable amount of respect for the NFL because that's not what these awards should be about. These awards shouldn't be given to the biggest publicity stunt. Okay, this dude gets a ton of publicity. Nobody's denying the situation. Like, this dude gets recognized for what he overcame every single day. There's other players who deserve recognition for their play on the field. Like, Damar Hamlin is so searched and he's trending damn near every time the Bills play and they show him on camera. Like, he gets enough recognition. He doesn't need Comeback Player of the Year. Like, Baker Mayfield, the fact that he was counted out. He was cast off. He goes to Tampa Bay with Todd Bowles, who, like Baker, nobody believed in also. Like, people thought that Todd Bowles was in a Lovie Smith situation and they were going to be tanking for Caleb Williams. Nothing against Damar Hamlin, but I'm pretty sure even he will tell you that he shouldn't win Comeback Player of the Year. This dude gets so much media coverage, so many accolades, so much recognition for what he had to overcome that there's no need to give him Comeback Player of the Year when the play and results on the field haven't been indicative of him being deserving of the award. And I really hope that the NFL doesn't give it to him. And I'm not on no hating shit. I just want the best players to get the awards that they earned. And it doesn't feel like Damar Hamlin has really earned this in a sense. Because you still have to play a handful of snaps. And you got to have a big impact on your team. And he hasn't done that this season. He's been the backup for the Bills. So I would be a little bit upset with the NFL if they give Comeback Player of the Year to Damar Hamlin. Now, if he had an all-pro season coupled with what he went through, or if he was having a similar season this year to what he had in 2022, then I would have no problem giving him the award because you're starting on your team, you're playing significant snaps, you're making a major impact on your team. There's no reason not to give you the award. But when you're inactive for a couple of games and you don't even start and you're only playing like maybe 6-8 downs a game, like why should that qualify you for Comeback Player of the Year? Like, this is a resume builder. This is something that these players look back upon once they retire and look back on their accomplishments. And it would be a slap in the face to rob Baker Mayfield or Matthew Stafford or Lamar Jackson or Joe Flacco of this accomplishment all because of this Damar Hamlin situation. And I don't know if I've gone about talking about this segment in the best way possible, but all I'm trying to say and emphasize to people is that, you know, Damar Hamlin, he already gets enough recognition and accolades for what he done, what he did, and what he had to overcome to play football again. But you still got to have to play on the field that replicates you are deserving of this award. And, you know, Joe Flacco and Baker Mayfield, to me, should win it more than Damar Hamlin. The MVP discussion hasn't really been talked about in a positive light this year. There are people saying this is the most useless MVP argument ever. There are people saying that this is a weak MVP race, but I still am really invested into the MVP this year. And I got my 5 candidates who I got ranked in order from worst to first or most deserving to the front runner right now. And right now, at number 5, I got to go with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, he didn't play that bad against Miami. He did throw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But the last couple of weeks, he definitely hasn't been able to keep up the same level of play that we saw out of him when they balled out against the Philadelphia Eagles. But he hasn't played bad enough to be completely removed off this ranking. So I still have him at number 5. And his last 2 games, he should be able to bounce back. He has a big-time matchup this Saturday on ESPN in prime time against the Detroit Lions. So if he balls out in that game, he could definitely find himself back up in the top 3 like he was a couple of weeks ago. But with the 2 weeks of football that we've seen out of the Cowboys and him, he's at number 5. I don't have Tyreek Hill here because he's not going to get the 2K yards and he missed the game too. So his MVP momentum is pretty much over with. I got Chris McCaffrey at number 4. If there was a non-quarterback who had a legitimate case to win the award, it would be Chris McCaffrey. You can definitely make the argument and say that he's the most valuable player on the San Francisco 49ers. He was the only player that actually did something against the Baltimore Ravens. He still had the touchdown and ran for over 100 yards on the ground. Brock Purdy had 4 interceptions. The defense didn't play good neither. He was the only player that seemed to have showed up for that game against Baltimore. And Chris McCaffrey, the reason why he isn't a little bit higher is because the guys above him had just been playing at such a great level, and plus their quarterback, so they got such a bigger impact on the outcome of the game. But if you take Chris McCaffrey off the 49ers, then this is a completely different team. So he definitely does deserve to be up here, and he definitely does have a legitimate argument. He has a great case. Like, Brock Purdy has played good, but Chris McCaffrey is a big reason why Brock Purdy has been able to sustain the level of success that he has been able to play at over the course of this season. You take Chris McCaffrey off San Francisco, this team is not what they are with them. Josh Allen comes in at number 3. Josh Allen, I don't think he has been talked about enough for the most valuable player award up until the last couple of weeks. He didn't have that great of a game performance-wise against the Chargers, but they still won the game. You still got to look at what Josh Allen has done. Ever since that Broncos game when they just went nuclear with the turnovers, he's been playing some great football. I just accepted the fact that he's just going to have a couple of turnovers. That's just the style of play that he has. He's carried Buffalo on his back. There's been moments when this defense has folded on them, like against the Philadelphia Eagles. They should have won that game. But Josh Allen, minus the turnovers, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Even with the turnovers, he still is a top 3 QB in the league right now. Some may argue that he's just as good as Mahomes and Lamar. That's a discussion for a different day. But the reason why the Bills are a dangerous team if they're able to get into the playoffs is mainly because of Josh Allen and how dynamic this offense has been with him underneath center. Not just his ability to push the ball downfield, but all of the crazy throws that he makes, all of the big-time runs that he has when he's running dudes over like he's Marshawn Lynch and Madden 25. Josh Allen, with 2 more good weeks to play, I definitely feel he could top Brock Purdy for that top spot on these rankings. Brock Purdy's coming in at number 2 for me. I'm not going to drop him too far off just because he had one bad performance against the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, it was really ugly, but 4 interceptions. It's not like he's done that in every other game that they played in. Every other MVP candidate has had a couple of bad games. Even Lamar Jackson, who is number 1 on my ranking. And the reason why I got Lamar at number 1 is it's pretty obvious. Like Lamar Jackson, he was the best player on the field when the 49ers and the Ravens played. He was unstoppable damn near. He's been unstoppable all season long. The statistics don't really do Lamar Jackson justice. When you watch the games, on third down situations, he's buying time for guys to get open. When nobody's open, he's picking up the first down with his legs. He's just so dynamic as a runner. And now that he has Todd Monken, who's been able to elevate him to a different dimension when it comes to throwing the football, he's a true definition of a dual threat quarterback. And I still don't believe that this Ravens offense has maxed out. You see, my vision of the Ravens offense is that they should be so good where there's not really a reason why they don't score on every single possession. Lamar Jackson, with his athleticism and how good of a passer he is, there's really no reason why the Ravens should ever get off the field. This should be like when you're playing somebody in Madden online who gets Lamar Jackson and how it's tough to get them off the field because he can run and do all these crazy things. That should be the same story for real life. Like Lamar Jackson, the Ravens should be scoring on at least 70 to 75% of their offensive possessions. Like this dude is just so gifted as a quarterback that when he's on, he's the most talented QB in the league, more talented than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes ain't running 4.28 like Lamar Jackson is. He doesn't have the dynamic running ability that Lamar has. So Brock Purdy is in at number 2. I'm not going to drop him too far off. If he has another bad game against the Washington Commanders, then I might just take him off the list. But he comes in at number 2. Josh Allen is in at number 3 for me. CMC is at number 4. And Dak Prescott is in at number 5. These are my Week 17 NFL MVP rankings. Comment your thoughts in the comment section down below. And the last thing I want to talk about is this. In 2024, there's a lot of optimism about the new 12-team expanded college football playoffs. And the main reason why so many college football fans are excited about this new playoff format is because it's going to create more parity in the sport. Now it's going to be a lot tougher for Alabama and Ohio State and Michigan to win it all consecutively every year. Do you really believe that? Let me tell you guys something really disturbing about the people who believe that expanding the playoffs to 12 teams is going to cause parity in college football. The top 12 teams right now, if we were to have a 12-team college football playoff this season, 7 out of 12 of those teams would be from either the Big Ten or the SEC. And that's not even including the new conference members such as Washington and Oregon who are joining the Big Ten, and Oklahoma and Texas who are going to be joining the SEC next year. Pretty much, if we had the 12-team college football playoffs for the 2023-2024 college football season, it pretty much would be the Big Ten SEC Invitational. You see, college football isn't going to be in a space where anybody can win it with the playoffs getting expanded. You see, with you expanding it to more teams, all you did was pretty much guarantee that half of the best teams in the Big Ten and half of the best teams in the SEC are going to be in this thing every year. The only thing that's keeping the SEC and the Big Ten in this thing every year is the fact that it was only 4 teams that could get in. Now you expand this team to 12 teams, all of a sudden Alabama loses 2-3 games, they still get into the playoffs. Penn State, Ole Miss, they're pretty much locks to get in now. The only reason they couldn't get into the playoffs is because they couldn't get past Michigan or Ohio State. Because it's only 4 teams. Like, I don't know why people thought that the best decision for creating parity in college football was by making it more easy access for the SEC and the Big Ten to get into it. What common sense did it make to expand it from 4 to 12? Now, all of a sudden, half of the SEC is going to be in the conference. It's going to be a Big Ten SEC monopoly on college football. The majority of the most talented teams in college football are either in the Big Ten or the SEC. That's who's won the last couple of national championships outside of FSU and Clemson. And the ACC isn't really going to be a factor in this thing anytime soon. And neither is the Big 12. Like, they got a couple of teams that can get into this thing because they're going to have to auto bid. But as far as them being more parity in the sport and them being more competitive playoff games, there's not going to be more competitive playoff games. You mean to tell me that you think a G5 school that gets the auto bid is going to be able to compete with one of the teams that gets the at-large bid that barely gets in? What if you got a G5 school like Tulane that gets the auto bid and they got to face a 12 seed Oklahoma or Texas who has like 3 or 4 losses? How do you think that's going to go? Like, the semifinal matchups aren't going to be any closer with this 12-team college football playoff than what it already is now. Like, the only thing that's going to make this thing interesting is that we're going to have more games featuring more big-time programs, and that's why I'm excited about this. But the people that are making this seem like this is going to be such a massive help for college football, like, what are you truly thinking? Like, how is this going to help the sport? How is this creating parity? The best idea for creating parity is by making the already exclusive club of 4 teams even less exclusive by allowing more teams to get in. You don't just go to 6-8 teams. You just said, fuck it. We're going to 12 teams. Shit, we're going to have half of the best SC teams in this thing, and we're going to have half of the best Big Ten teams in this thing. Like, just right off the rip. Next year, I'm going to tell you who are going to be locks to get into this thing. From the Big Ten, it's going to be Ohio State. I don't know about Michigan because I don't know what's going to happen to Jim Harbaugh, but you're going to have Ohio State, Penn State, either Washington or Oregon. So you're going to at least have 3 or 4 Big Ten teams that get in. And you're going to have, like 4 or 5 SEC teams that get in. You know Bama's going to get in. You know Georgia's going to get in. Ole Miss is definitely going to get in with how the hell they've been recruiting the last couple of weeks. Holy Christ. Did you know they just got Walter Nolan? Look out for them. You're going to have Ole Miss that's going to be in. And there's always one team from the SEC East that always seems to come out of nowhere. It could be Tennessee. It could be Florida. Who knows? It could be Mizzou again. Like, the top 12 teams right now in college football, Michigan, Washington, Texas, Bama, FSU, UGA, Ohio State, Oregon, Mizzou, Penn State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, they recruit at a high level. From a talent standpoint, they're always going to be there. It just comes down to coaching and execution. And the only thing that kept the SEC and the Big Ten from dominating this thing in the past has been the fact that you can only put 4 teams in. Think about all the times that Alabama has got left out the playoffs when people felt they deserved to be in. There's a time when Georgia got left out of the playoffs when people felt they should have been in. Same thing with Ohio State. You want to know why? Because the fact that you can only have 4 teams in this thing keeps this monopoly around college football from happening. People already believe that there's a monopoly in the sport. And that is true to a certain extent. But in this year of the college football playoffs, the last year of the 14 playoffs, this is probably the first year ever that we've got different conferences in this thing. We don't have 2 teams from one conference. We got 1 team from the best conference representing every conference in college football outside of the ACC. Apologies to the Florida State fans out there. But imagine how this thing is going to look next year when you make it easy for Georgia to get in And when FSU and Georgia got left out of this thing, they said, that's exactly why we need a 12-team playoff. Yeah, you only want to expand the playoffs so your team can get in. But if you're trying to make this thing seem like this is going to be better for the sport, it's going to be better for the sport, but it's also going to hurt the sport, because all this is going to do is make the SEC and the Big Ten stronger than what they already are now. They're going to have even more pull on this thing. Like, be honest, the SEC and Big Ten know how this thing is going to play out. And I have a strong feeling that there's going to be some modifications to this thing, because the SEC and the Big Ten, they're going to have way too easy of a time running through these G5 schools. Like, the whole argument for the playoffs getting expanded has changed so many times. It went from, well, the G5 schools don't have a chance. Cincinnati got in 2020. Well, we don't have a lot of parity. We don't have a lot of new faces. Well, this year you got Washington and Texas, who never appeared. Well, Washington went one time, and you got Texas, who was making their first ever appearance, and you got Bama and Michigan. We've never gotten these matchups before. By going to 12 teams, all you're doing is making it a guarantee that this thing is going to be the Big Ten SEC Invitational every single year. The only thing that's keeping these two conferences from dominating the sport has been the fact that only 4 teams can get in. And even then, you still have had a hard time holding down the Big Ten and the SEC. And your whole solution for creating parity in college football is just by making it even more easier for the SEC and Big Ten to not get left out. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but if you call that parity, I'm all for it, I guess. I'm excited about the 12-team college football playoffs, but all this is going to do is further create the monopoly that already has been building the last decade between the Big Ten and the SEC on college football. You saw how Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC completely kickstarted conference realignment and has completely changed the landscape of college football forever. If the SEC's moves have this much pull on the rest of the sport, imagine how them and the Big Ten always making it into the playoffs is going to impact the future of this sport. Now they can say there's not even a need for us even to compete in this thing with these other teams. They're not going to be able to beat us. We might as well just go ahead and do our own thing. So I'm excited about the 12-team college football playoffs, but I don't have this optimism that many people have that it's going to bring among parity in the sport, where the parity has kind of been created because you can only allow 4 teams in. Creating parity is not making it easier for Georgia with 3-4 losses to get in. Like, people only want to expand this thing when their team gets left out. Shit, there's going to be teams that get left out of the 12-team college football playoffs, and people are going to say, man, we need to go to 16. And then we go to 16. Man, we need to go to 24. And then there's people that's going to say, man, we need to go to 32. And then there's going to be people that just say, F it. We need to take Mike Leach advice. 64-team college football playoffs, 8-game regular season. Let's let them slug it out for who is the national champion. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Remember that after this live stream concludes in a couple of hours, it'll be available on audio format on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys shortly with another episode.